I'm Ryan.
I'm Jake.
And together we are...
We're functionally literate. Got there before you.
Oh my god, you did. Shit. Well, I guess I'm not functionally speedy.
No, you're not. I'm fast as fuck, boy.
Today we are reading 14 by Peter Clines. Today we are covering chapters 21 through 27 of the book.
And I don't have any notes.
Okay.
This episode I've been really bad. I don't have any notes.
It's all right. I've got all the
see.
notes. So let's recap briefly on what we know.
Ryan will be carrying hard.
This is a weird fucking building, man. What do we know about this building so far?
It's old.
It's old.
It is a landmark.
It's a landmark, and we don't know why.
All of the apartments are different.
All of the apartments are different.
People don't have dreams. There are weird cockroaches that have bizarre genetic mutations.
They die when they get too far away from the building. And they shrivel up when they get further.
And there is a sub-basement as well.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and what's it called? The guy that looks after the building, Oscar.
Oscar.
He doesn't want anybody snooping around. Oscar. Yeah, he hates snoopers. Ooh, Blue Taurus Man.
Oh, yeah, there's a guy in a Taurus
that's another thing.
That's like looking at the building, we think.
Yeah.
All of the apartments are strange. Like, Nate's apartment has a black light that's like, no matter what bulb you put in the light fixture, it's always a black light. Veek's apartment is always 69 degrees Fahrenheit.
Suicide room has an icy cold wall to the touch.
Yes, apartment 16 has a weird vibe. Someone killed themselves in that room a long time ago, so it's not shown for rent anymore, and they just saw it at the end of this last episode, and one of the walls is icy cold to the touch. Shoot, Zila's apartment is the bathroom's fucking weird.
There's so much. This is like, it's literally anything. There's no power. There's like, we could go on forever.
They don't know where they're getting their power from. That's a big one.
And then we also don't know which one of these things like is a legitimate like, ooh, something's up with the building, and which ones are just like gonna lead to nowhere.
Why is the laundry room? Why are the washers so cheap? Why?
True. True. Why is the rent so cheap? Who knows?
Okay. Well, anyways, so at the end of the last episode, they were making a concerted effort to measure as much of the building as they could,
hoping to reveal secrets.
Yeah, we met two new characters, Debbie and Clive. Clive is a carpenter. So Clive came up with a plan of action on like how to go about measuring this whole place. They measured his apartment, and they measured 16, and they measured Veek's place. So that's where we're starting now. Chapter 21. How Nate met Andrew, the religious zealot of apartment 25, and how Clive determined that the building's plumbing made no sense.
So they have to measure between the interior and exterior walls. They've already done 16 to Veek's, and now they've got to do the other direction to go from... What were the two rooms?
Mandy and Nate's apartments.
Oh, okay.
But
Mandy and Nate's.
Yeah, because they live across the hall from each other. But here, though, Nate and Clive measured the lounge, while Veek and Debbie properly measured 15. And then then the men got measurements from Nate's place, while the women persuaded Mandy to let them measure her place. When they asked him about measuring his place, he was all for it. He was like, yeah, go for it. Absolutely. Debbie suggested the men go see if Andrew would let them measure his place, while she and Veek went to go do Zila's place. Clive made very clear that he did not want to do that. Like, he did it, but he didn't want to do it, you know?
Yeah.
He was like, hopefully...
Understandably.
Well, I didn't realize this until this chapter. This is a Sunday. So he was like, hopefully Andrew won't be here. Hopefully he'll be, like, at, like, lunch or something after church.
Yeah.
And Nate's like, why? And Clive's like, I don't like dealing with him.
And we soon find out why.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, Andrew was there, and we do find out why. So Nate and Andrew properly introduced themselves. Andrew was the guy in one of the earlier chapters who kind of like briefly helped Nate navigate a gate while he was disposing of some of the phone books.
Yeah.
I picked up on something here, just like in the intonation that the narrator used. It was a choice on his part to just, he was like, oh yeah, you're the man who cleaned up some of the phone books. Like, he's disappointed Nate didn't finish the job, and it's like, you could have done it.
Literally. Yeah.
This whole fucking interaction, we just learned that Andrew is so... How would you put it?
He's righteous.
Yeah.
In his beliefs.
He's very righteous.
He's like... I think they put it very, very adequately, like... Is it in this chapter where it's like his God is better than your God, or like his beliefs are better than your beliefs, and his God will kick your God's ass. Yeah.
No, that was in the last chapter, like when they first mentioned Andrew and like why Clive.
Okay.
But yeah, that's pretty spot on. Like when they asked to go measure the apartment, he was kind of like, why? And Nate made the mistake of saying, oh, just settling a bet, and this almost screwed them. Right? Like, Andrew was, like, about to say no because he's like, oh, I don't know if I can get involved with that. You know, the book has a thing or two to say about the subject of gambling. I don't think I can condone such behavior. Like, motherfucker, you prick.
Literally.
So they had to clarify, like, there's not actually a bet going on. We're just satisfying curiosity. And he was like, oh, okay, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I probably wouldn't let them in.
Really?
if people came up to my apartment and they were like, "Just let me in," to satisfy my curiosity. I want to measure your apartment.
We're just measuring things.
Yeah, I'd be like, "No, go away."
But if you were already aware of the weirdness of the building.
Oh, I'd be like 100% come in. Let me fix you some coffee while I...
Yeah. While they're getting the measurements, just the conversation with Andrew is so weird. Like, the whole conversation is about church. Like, the whole conversation. Clive makes a comment like, oh, you know, I'm surprised that you're not already at church. He's like, I'm surprised myself that you're not at church. And Clive's like, oh, we're going to evening mass. And, like, you can tell that he's a fucking liar. Like, he doesn't go to fucking church. He's just saying that to, like, get fucking Andrew off his back. And
I know.
Fucking Andrew is just going on like, oh, yeah, we're doing Starlight services as well. We're going out to this beach that, like, Nate is surprised of because it's, like, 45 minutes away. I don't remember the exact beach, but...
Pray with good fellows is always worth the drive.
Yeah.
And despite the weather, God's words keep us warm.
Yeah, basically.
Like, chill out, my guy.
Like,
chill the fuck out.
Yeah, and so then the conversation shifts to Nate, and he's like, what church do you go to? And, like, there's a comment there where Nate could feel the landmine, and he could sense other landmines nearby, and he's just like, oh, I'm in between churches at the moment. You know, I just moved.
In between churches is so good.
And the guy's like, oh, well, maybe you could come to my church. And he's like, all right, well, you know, I'll consider it later. And then fucking Andrew's like, you're not going to consider it now. And Nate's like, I don't know anything about it now.
Yeah.
Like, too just good. So, like, Andrew is the worst kind of Christian.
Not even a spoonful of sugar will help that medicine go down. Like,
and like, I get the impression that like Andrew and Zila's apartments, those were the last two that they measured because like after that they all meet back up in apartment 13, which is Debbie and Clive's place.
Yeah. And this is where they kind of like work out some weirdness with like the apartments, you know, and how things are laid out.
So Clive figured out, he was like, okay, so the exterior walls, they're just brick. Like, that's pretty obvious. Based on the measurements I got, the difference is 3.5 inches from the exterior and interior. He was like, I'm going to just assume that's standard throughout the entire building because of the measurements that I got. The interior walls are fucking weird, though. The interior walls of all of these apartments are inconsistent throughout. So that's when he kind of gets into what he thinks is going on, because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The placement of the plumbing in the building is designed in such a way that he thinks one of two things is going on. Either every apartment has its own set of plumbing,
which would be madness. Yeah.
Which would be madness. Or they have shared lines, but they're like crisscrossing back and forth under the floors.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Which he says would make the walls more metal than wood.
Yeah. Nate, like, glances at Clive's wooden walls. Like, it doesn't, like, explicitly say it in that moment, but it's like, there's a lot of fucking wood in this room.
Is this then where Vik is like, we should rip down a wall? You know, like...
That happens at the start of the next chapter, yeah. But, like, so basically at this chapter, like, the way it ends is Clive is like, it's like they purposefully made tons of space inside the walls and then made the plumbing way more complicated than it needed to be to fill the space. The way it ends is Debbie is like, or they were making space in the walls for something else.
Gremlins.
No, genuinely, when I was going through these chapters, I thought to myself, fuck, this lends more credence to Jake's Gremlins theory.
Literally, it does. And, like, I hope I'm wrong, because that would be, like, absurd writing. That would be, like, you know, the family is just a horde of gremlins in the walls. But, yeah.
Chapter 22. How Nate realized he was in charge of the investigation.
So this is when Vik suggests what you said. Like, she's just like, what if we, start, knocking down walls so we can see what's in them?
Absurd.
It's just a dumb plan.
So, unthought through.
Yeah.
And she just doesn't think things through, I think. Why is she written like this?
The thing that was funny about it is Nate's like, how? And Vik's like, we could do it quietly. We could do it inside an apartment so Oscar wouldn't know. And then Clive, the carpenter, spells out the logistics of doing that and how it just wouldn't be possible to do it quietly.
It's like the idea of rubble falling in the walls and stuff as well. Like, yeah.
That alone, like, if you knock a hole in the wall, so much crap is just going to start falling down and down and down. Like, that will be heard.
A lesser dumb suggestion was the idea of drilling a hole and putting, like, a fiber optics camera or something down there, like an optics camera.
But Nate was just like, now you're just being silly.
I know, but that's arguably less dumb than ripping a wall down.
I mean, you'd have to have a fiber optic camera for one thing.
True.
I mean,
but
I don't think
you
any
don't
of them
know
have
what
one.
Vik's got lying around. Vik has got some, you know.
I mean, when Nate said, now you're just being silly, she acknowledged that she was being silly. It's just so frustrating. I feel like if she actually had a fiber optic camera, she would have in that moment been like, no, I have one. I have a fiber optic camera.
That would be, yeah.
But I mean, if she had one, it would have been really convenient for her to have brought that up when they were investigating the cellar.
Yes, true. But it would have been convenient for her to bring up the fact that Y23 was fucking not a door.
Yeah.
So who knows?
No, you're right.
She just likes withholding information for fun, I think.
So I think this chapter does a really good job of addressing what you're saying about Vik.
Yeah.
Nate is clearly the one in charge.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't spell that out by pointing to Veek's inadequacies, but we can do that, right? Like, all of the things that you pointed out about Veek in the last episode, that's why Nate's in charge, right? He's the more observant one. He's the one that's, like, figuring shit out. Even Veek acknowledges, while she's been looking into this for a year and Nate has been largely building off of what he learned from her, he's done far more in a week with all of this than she's done the entire time she's been living here.
Yeah, I also want to acknowledge the fact that the reason for that is probably that he's not actually working.
Yeah.
He's just stealing his wage every day at the moment.
All right, let's be clear here. Okay, let's be clear here. Wage theft is a fucking lie. Okay, if anybody's stealing from anyone, it's the companies that are stealing from us. Okay, I think
True.
Nate stealing his wages is just like getting even. Okay, I support wage theft.
True.
I support wage theft. Okay, I condone this behavior. Like, if you're working for a small business, maybe don't do that. But if you're working for a large corporation, fucking make your paycheck. Do whatever. Go off, man.
Yeah, capitalism is a scam. This episode is not brought to you by capitalism.
This episode is so not brought to you by capitalism. No, but if you want to support us, definitely there's ways to do that. Anyways.
So good.
So Clive is like, hey, we got to wrap up this meeting. Like, this has been really great, honestly, but I've got to be at the Paramount Studios at 5 a.m. And then that's when Debbie chimes in, like, 6 more days until he gets into the union.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, and so like Clive's like, no, but this was awesome, though. Like, what are we doing next weekend? And then everybody looks to Nate, and Nate doesn't have a satisfactory answer. He's like, I don't know, but we need to be careful, though.
And then he's like, I'll work it out. We need to not trigger Oscar.
Yeah. So then Debbie, like, shoos everybody out. Like, Veek wants to help with cleaning up, but Debbie's like, no, everyone get out. Go on. Go. And so Zila goes back to her apartment, and then Veek turns to Nate and is like, what are we doing next weekend? And he's like, why does everybody keep asking me that? And then, like, that's when we have this conversation where, like, Veek kind of spells out, Nate, you're in charge.
So this is where I think that Veek is flirting, though.
Yes. Because
yeah,
at
this
the
is
end
where
of
I
this
was like...
chapter, she points out that Fred always went off with Daphne and Shaggy always went off with Velma. And so Nate wusses out and he's like, I'm sticking with Scooby then, because she asked him straight up, like, are you Fred or are you Shaggy? And he's like, I think I took a Facebook quiz that said I was Scooby. And she was like, that's a wuss out answer. But yeah, at the end of this chapter, he's like, I'm sticking with Scooby. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. That's definitely her flirting, for sure. There's, like, bits later on as well where they're, like, I don't know, trying to suggest that he's flirting with, like, everyone all the time. That, like, Nate's flirting with yeah.
You're gonna have to tell me what you're talking about when we get there. I don't think I picked up on that.
Yeah.
23. How Nate's work hours were cut by 20%.
So, Nate spent his Monday not working on much. Yeah,
as usual, it seems.
He filled out forms with the Department of Public Works to find out more information about the building, sent a bunch of emails to people there.
Yeah.
Tuesday, he spent all day looking through pages of old photos of LA, trying to find old pictures of his neighborhood or his building.
None of this sounds like data entry.
No. In fact, he shifted some shit around in his tubs of boxes of crap to, like, make it look like he's been doing work when he absolutely is not.
Yeah.
And so while he's, like, skimming through these photos, he's got, like, fucking 300 tabs open. Eddie walks up. He immediately switches over to, like, his data entry stuff. And then he was pretending like he didn't notice Eddie. And then he pretends like he did notice Eddie, like, late. And was just like, oh, hey, what's up? And Eddie's like, don't come into work tomorrow. And he's like, shit, what's wrong? What happened?
you've not been doing your job for the past
Yeah, you've not been doing your
years.
job is what's wrong. But no, Eddie's oblivious to that. And he's just like, He gives a bogus reason as to why. Something about saving money. The magazine's going to be doing a big issue soon. And so they want to cut costs. And so Nate is losing a day of work per week. And when they asked him and the other temps, and when they asked why, he just kind of shrugged. He was like, 5 or 6 weeks tops. And it's like, was it though? Was it 5 or 6 weeks tops?
Yeah, who knows? And then doesn't he doesn't he ask whether he can have it on a Monday or a Friday?
Yeah, and so this bit genuinely irked me.
Infuriating.
Yeah, because he's like,
infuriating.
Yeah, like at the end of this chapter, Eddie's like, so are you cool with just having your Wednesdays off? Like, why? Like during this time? And Nate's like, I don't suppose I could get a Monday or a Friday off. And then Eddie fucking snorts and is like, yeah, like we're gonna give you a 3-day weekend. And I'm just like, motherfucker, why not? You're screwing him over.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, give the man a fucking 3-day weekend. You've literally, Nate's like, fuck, I'm losing 20% of my paycheck over this bullshit.
I would be livid.
Yeah, no, it is something to be livid about. Like, the man gets no benefits. You can't even just give him this one thing. You can't give him this.
I know, right? I know. It's like, but to be fair, is this the part where he's like asks him how he's doing data entry wise, and he kicks the crate, and the crate caves in. Yeah,
Nate makes a comment about how this is just gonna put him even further behind on his work.
Yeah,
and, he kicks a crate, and then just the shit in the crate just falls into the center.
Maybe that's why he's not getting a 3-day week.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, because Eddie's like, you're kind of falling behind now, aren't you? And Nate internally had to acknowledge that this was true because he's been doing he has blown off at least 4 days of work by this point.
Chapter 24. How Nate discovered the truth about Tony the realtor.
Ooh, this was really good actually. So
this is probably my favorite chapter we're going to discuss this episode.
Yeah, me too. I think it was the most revealing.
Yeah. So there were 2 things about this chapter, I think. Let's talk about the least interesting thing that happened first.
Okay.
Which was the man in the green Taurus.
Yes. It's funny that this is the least interesting.
Right?
Because I'm real good chapter if this is the least interesting. He was pitched up against the car, wasn't he, with his binoculars, staring at the building.
Yeah.
And Nate was
he was going for a walk and noticed this guy, and he was like, hey, what are you doing?
To which the guy in the Taurus said nothing, looked real mad, and didn't he just hop in the car and drive away?
Yeah, so he tossed his binoculars through the passenger window and then smoothly got into his car, started it up, and drove off. The narration describes it almost as though this man had practiced doing this motion many, many times to make it nice and smooth.
He is in the cult of Kavatch. That's what this is. I see this game.
And it just started innocently enough. Nate was on his laptop at home on his unwanted day off, and he was just like, no, this is wrong. I should not be spending my day off from being on a computer all day to just be on a computer all day. I'm going for a walk. And so that's how he had this encounter.
Yeah.
But then he wanders down to this little coffee shop on his walk, and it's around lunchtime, and he's like, okay, well, you know what? I'll get a little something. He's like, I'll get a muffin and a coffee, and I'll consider this my lunch. And it's like, man, you're so poor. Poor
I know,
guy.
Right?
He's just so
well,
poor.
At least he's got a good deal on rent, you know.
Yeah. At least he's got that going for him.
It could be worse off if he hit his target of 800, you know.
Yeah. Oh my God, he'd be fucked
so
right
much
now.
worse. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. So he gets his order and he sits over at a table and he's reading this magazine with this article about cults, like apocalypse cults in the past. And then, like, when he's done with his food, he sees Tony waiting in line.
I know. This is where I was like, this jarred me a lot. Yeah. I was like,
go ahead.
So it was like the description. I was like, at first it's like, oh, he sees Tony in line, and he didn't quite recognize her, and I was like, okay. And then the description is that, like, she's in casual clothes, which was fine. But then she had a backpack, and I was like, oh, why is it giving student? And then she had a book in her hand, and I was like, wow, it's really giving student. What is this? You know? To which he then calls out Tony, and she doesn't respond. And then he calls it out again, and she's the last person to respond. And I was like, oh. This was the point where I was like, she is not a realtor. I was like, there's no way. She's a student.
Yeah.
She's a student doing a job, and, like, you know, and her name's not Tony. And so he goes up and he starts, like, talking to her, asking her basically about the building, seeing if she can, like, send some information over. And she's like, oh, sorry, I don't have any of the material prepped. I wasn't told that we'd be doing a scene today.
Yeah, did they send you to find me?
Yeah.
No. And he's just, like, he's so confused. He's like, I think you might have me confused with someone else. I was Nathan
also
Tucker.
I was also very confused. I was sharing in Nate's confusion at this point.
He clarifies. He's like, I'm Nathan Tucker. You rented out an apartment to me over on Kenmore. Mm-hmm. And she's like, right, yeah. She's like, fuck. You know? Like,
yeah.
And so finally, she's like, nobody sent you to come find me? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, I thought you were here for more material. And he's like, I kind of am. Like,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the landmark thing.
It's so good.
She's like, nobody sent you to come find me? And he's like, no, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're not trying to screw me over here? And he's like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I was literally, like, every single line that Nate was spitting out, I was, like, thinking the same thing. I was like, I'm so confused. What is going on?
Oh, my God. It was so weird. It was so good. But no, she, like, sits him down.
I think something that happened here while they were having that conversation that I thought was, like, really quite good narration and, like, directing of the introduction of how much layers-wise it is that she is just playing a character, was when they mentioned that someone called a name for coffee that wasn't hers.
Yeah, like a name was called out, and she took the coffee. But it wasn't Tony.
That was a really good bit. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
I felt like that was a good little cherry on the cake of this scene.
The fucking crazy reveal. She's like, my name is Kathy. I'm a theater arts major. And it's like, what?
Yeah. And the job that she's got playing these scenes, quote unquote, doing, like, these ad-libs on the site as, like, a realtor is like an urban legend on campus, you know, which is so spam.
Because that's the other thing that kind of sets this up. When he comes to this coffee shop, it talks about where he's going on his walk, and it mentions how he walks past the campus neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking weird.
It really is. And basically she's like, they give me this really nice phone and they pay me $1,000 a month, which is not bad going. And she's like, and I show the apartments to people.
They gave me all this props and the material that I need to do the scenes, and then I just ad-lib scenes with people that...
And they text me whether someone gets the apartments and stuff. And
so
the phone was really interesting because she was like, there's really good noise cancellation, so wherever I am, it sounds like I'm in an office. And I was like, a doubt.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was like very much like doubt that.
I mean, you know quite a bit about how that shit works. Like, what kind of super phone do you got?
Literally.
No, so hold on. So you actually know a bit about like sound manipulation and that stuff. So like logistically, how would that work?
How noise cancellation works is you basically end up with, you get, it takes a microphone, taking a signal that has to be consistent, right? And then it flips the signal so that it cancels itself out, basically. So if you've got like whooshing background noise, and you've got like cars or something going past, if it's like a consistent sort of sound, the second that sound triggers, it takes a recording of that sound, flips it and feeds it back into your ears in the opposite phase, so it cancels it out. So you can have a level of noise cancellation, but I don't think it would be, especially when was this based?
This was 2012.
2012. I'm not sure in 2012 there was the level of noise cancellation that we currently have, because a lot of the noise cancellation that we have now that's like top tier noise cancellation is all AI.
So even now in the modern day, would what she's describing be possible?
It's on the edge. It depends, because if she was like sat somewhere and people like talking, or there's a lot of, you could probably get a really clean signal. There's some amazing like noise cancellation stuff now. And there's also like isolation that you can get now, where it's like you can pull certain aspects of a sound out. So if you're in a room that has music, you can isolate the music and just listen to the music. It's some stuff bleeds in and out of it, but yeah, it's really interesting.
But in 2012, doubt.
I kind of doubt it. I mean, I was only just getting into audio production around that time. And the noise cancellation plugins and stuff that I've used, there's a limit to it, and it does really, really affect kind of like the quality of the audio of the person talking. And there's, the more you kind of sample noise and the more erratic the noise that you're trying to cancel is, the less effective the cancellation is. So,
okay, so in conclusion, this is fiction, and Peter Kleins doesn't know what he's talking about.
Wait, this has been fiction the whole time. I did not realize.
Anyway, so she like hands him her phone, her work phone, and he's like, this thing's got like all kinds of features he's never even seen before. Yeah. And like he literally looks at the text that says Nathan Tucker has been approved for apartment 28. That's so, now like imagine, like that's so jarring. So she gets paid through PayPal. Like she doesn't know who hired her. She doesn't know who pays her. It's all through PayPal.
Yeah, it's super sus. And she obviously doesn't want to think about it either, because the gig is sweet. You know?
No. Like, and he, like, there's this moment where it's just like, he just sounds so, like, such a sad, bewildered puppy dog. He's just like, how long has this been going on? She's like,
it's so
she's
good.
like, I've been doing it for 1.5 years. The girl before me did it for about 1 year. The girl before her did it for like 3 years. This episode is brought to you by you. You. Sitting there, listening to this. Probably commuting. Maybe you're doing your dishes. Maybe you're sitting there with the book that we're currently discussing. Regardless, thank you for listening. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for listening to the show every other week, sometimes every week, depending on if there's bonus episodes. We really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. This show would not keep happening if you and all the other people like you weren't listening. So I really appreciate that. And I would really love to have a conversation with you. You personally. I want you to reach out to me so we can have a conversation about this show. I want to know why you like this show. I want to know how you discovered this show. I want to know if you think it's too long or too short. I want to know what other podcasts you listen to. I want to know how you describe this show to your friends, if you do at all. If you don't, I want to know why you don't. Anyway, you can reach out to me. If you know me personally, text me. If you don't have my number, reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. If you don't know me on Facebook at all, you can email the podcast's email address. The email address is funk.lit.pod@gmail.com. That is func.lit.pod@gmail.com.
I mean, it sounds like a pretty sweet job, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. And she's like, isn't it obvious what's going on? You're clearly on like a reality show like Big Brother or something. And like he picks it apart, and the more he picks it apart, the more clear it is that she's clearly not put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah.
Which
and it's like it makes sense because it is very shady, but as long as she's getting paid, it's like
it's consistently shady. It's like, it's shady, but it's legit in that she's getting paid. So she's not thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like safer for her to keep herself in the dark. So if anything does come out and it's like, oh, this was a shady thing all along, she can be like, oh, well, I didn't know. And it would be true. You know?
I love her reasoning. She's just like, it's LA. I've done weirder stuff for work.
Yeah. The description of the weirdest stuff she's done for work.
Like Nate just interrupts her. Like, hey, look, I'm sorry. This is actually really important. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
It's too good.
Like, what was it? She was like asked to like dress up as like a dog or something, and
like a cat from Cats, and then she was asked to do something, and then he cuts her off.
He's like, look, I don't care. And so she mentions that she was given a lot of material to like tell people about the building during these ad-lib scenes, and he's like, wait, you mentioned you have a document about the building? And she's like, yeah, it's like 30 or 40 pages. And he's like, could you email that to me? And she's really like nervous about this fucking her over.
Yeah. I mean, she said that she didn't work for 3 months and still made $3,000 from this job, so I don't blame her. Genuinely, I couldn't blame her.
Yeah, the chapter ends with her like agreeing, and she's like, okay, fine, I'll send it to you. But
I will sue you.
If this screws me over, if I lose this job over you, I will kill you, and I know where you live. I was like, all right, you know what? Fair.
It's fair enough.
And he's like reassuring her. It's like, no, it'll be fine. But clearly, like, he doesn't know that. Like, he just wants that info.
Yeah.
As an aside, so Nate mentioned that his apartment is on Kenmore. So I actually looked this up. So there really is a Kenmore Avenue.
Okay.
The street is broken up by a school called Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools. And near there, because it talks about like the things he passes by while he's on his walk, it mentions a McDonald's and a Braille Institute near there. And I was looking at it on Google Maps. There is a McDonald's and a Braille Institute near Kenmore Avenue and this community college.
Man was writing this book with Google Maps open.
Probably. Yeah. No, like, so based on looking at Google Maps, I'm pretty sure Nate lives on North Kenmore Avenue.
Can we find the Kavatch building?
I doubt
maybe
it.
Maybe that's like...
You think maybe he just saw like a really fucking weird building and was like, I'm gonna write a story about that building?
Yeah, maybe there's like, he's probably like named it himself, but there's probably like a red brick building on that road, you know?
Chapter 25, How Oscar and Nate Had a Confrontation About the Kavatch Building.
So the way this goes, it's the next day, and Nate's at work, and he's decided he's actually going to buckle down and get some work done, right? Like, he's not, like, fully focused on work. Every hour or so, he's checking his emails for that fucking document from Kathy, not Tony, and it never shows up, which I'm wondering about that.
Sus.
So Anne, one of the other temps, she kind of pokes her head in, and she says to Nate, hey, we're going to be having drinks over at this bar that we always go to. And he's like, I don't have the fucking money for that, especially not now. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, editor Dave is giving us all a free round as kind of like an apology. And he's like, but it's not Dave's fault. And Nan's like, yeah, but he's a good guy. Like, come on. Like, it's a free drink. Just thought you'd want to know. And so Nate's like, all right, fine, I'll go. Because as she was walking away, he was watching her, as the narration puts it. Anne's hips made a very good argument for going.
This was the scene at the party. There's something that's like mentioned in the next bit as well. There's like when I'm like, Nate is like flirting with everyone, and that just seems to be part of what he does. Is he just flirts with everyone? They bring it up.
Is that what you got from here? Because I did not get that from here.
So he, when they're at the party, it mentions that I think it was Nate. Nate was flirting with someone at the party that's like out of his league. They both know that.
Oh, Anne. Yeah, the woman who invited him out. He was flirting with her, even though they both know that she's out of his league.
Yeah, but he seems to just be like flirting with everyone. With Zila, with Vic, with Anne. In every context, you know.
I mean, you're a single guy. You gotta play the field, I guess.
Fair enough. I mean,
but yeah, no, like he's at this party. I mean, I guess you could call it a party. I would consider it more of like an outing. He saw the journalist with the hot redhead girlfriend without his girlfriend again.
Yeah.
He was at that party and he was just like, he realized how little he cared about it. There was a moment where he'd had his drink. He was considering getting another one, but he already had beers in his fridge at home. And he was just like, I don't know. I think... And then, he's like, I think I should just go home. And then thinking about going home reminds him, oh, shit, I haven't told Vic about what I found out yesterday.
Yeah.
So he's like, he just ducks out. Like, I don't think he even says goodbye to anybody.
He just stands up and he's like, peace. And just leaves.
Just like, I'm out.
Yeah.
But because he went to go get drinks before leaving to go home, he got home fairly quickly because he was on the tail end of rush hour traffic. And he managed to find parking with just 10 minutes, like in only 10 minutes. It's like only 10 minutes? God damn.
The parking's really bad. Why have they why are they like really driving home this parking being terrible thing?
Maybe Peter Klein's just has a vendetta against LA.
That's fair, maybe.
But maybe this is just what it really is like living in LA.
Maybe,
he just is like, look, this is the life, okay? This is what it's like.
Fair. Spending an hour searching for parking is absurd.
I genuinely wonder if it would be cheaper for his wallet to just like take taxis.
Maybe. If you're driving around for an hour, that's catch a bus.
But he finds parking relatively close to his building, and this is when he sees Oscar like coming out of a corner grocery store near the place.
This was quite sad. Actually, because he said he sees Oscar, and like the look on Oscar's face is like, I can't remember how he describes it, but it was like something along the line. As I recall,
it was the look of a man who was resigned to like his lot in life.
Yeah, so depressing.
Like the look of a man who clearly isn't living the life that he wants to live, but like is resigned to where he is in life.
Yeah, exactly. So depressing. And it's like the fact that it was like, didn't they mention this, like a look that Nate knows well or something?
Yeah. A look that he knows well.
Jeez.
So he just like, he sees him. He's like, Oscar, hi. And it takes Oscar a second to like register him
Nate out of context. Yeah.
There's a bit of that I'm noticing, like just seeing people out of context.
Yeah.
But so, like he kind of saddles up to Oscar and they walk to the apartment together.
Yeah.
And,
they have like, quite a nice interaction at first. Yeah, at first. It was very like human. It's almost like proximity to the building. You know what I mean?
The building fucks it all up. Yeah, no, because like Oscar's like talking about, you know, it's a nice building. He's happy to live there. He's glad he has such good tenants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Nate's like, hey, I wanted to ask you if you could give me the address to the main office. And this is when Oscar just gets fucking squirrely.
Yeah, and it's I don't know how much I can actually believe Oscar's reasoning behind, you know, because he's like, anything that you need, go through me.
Yeah.
And then it was just like a lot of excuses. And then he's talking about how he wants to keep his job and he doesn't want to put his job at risk. And part of him doing his job is making sure that nobody contacts the main office about stupid things like rats.
And it's just like, well, I didn't want to fucking contact him about rats, you jerk.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. But he doesn't like change the subject slowly and they get off topic.
So he asks Nate why, like, he's trying to work around him. And Nate's like, I'm not trying to work around you. I just want the address for my records. Like, if I ever move, like, and he's like, are you planning on moving? And he's like, well, no, I'm not planning on moving. But, like, you know, if I ever do, it would be good to have it for my records. Like, wherever I move, they're probably going to want to, like, get in touch with them. And Oscar's like, no, they got that. That's all through me. That's all through me.
Yeah, and he's like, what if you're not there anymore? You know, and Oscar's like, I have been here my whole life.
He says exactly what he said the first time they met him, which is like, I have lived in this building for 23 years, 19 as manager. I have no plans to move. Like, I handle all of that. It's fine.
Yeah.
So Nate is like, is it just far away or something? And Oscar's like, why do you ask that? And he's like, because you're being really difficult about it. I just thought maybe it was far away. And Oscar
then he
latches onto that.
He does. And he, like, drops some weird thing. Between you and me, I think it's a tax thing.
Yeah, no, so...
You know?
So he asks about Tony, right? Because Oscar's like, yes, the main office is very far away, and that's why. And he's like, okay, so then what's up with Tony then? Like, I thought that she worked in an office near here. And he's like, honest truth? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like,
the most unhonest truth. Yeah.
It's the best kind of lie, right? It's a lie laced with truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because he's like, Tony is a local face that was hired from a local office to be a pretty face locally that can, like, get people sorted. But they don't want to set up an office here because of some tax thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, okay. And so Oscar's like, okay, cool. I've skated past this. Great. And so then Nate, he's just like, so about that address though.
Yeah. And then Oscar's like shuts it down real hard. And I think this is where Oscar gets like real grouchy, you know?
Oh yeah. Fucking real grouchy.
Yeah. And he's like, it all goes through me. Don't bring it up again. And then stop measuring the building.
Yeah. He's just straight up. He's like, there's going to be no more talk of this. And also, quit fucking around. Yeah. I know what you're doing. Quit fucking around. And Nate, like, it stops Nate cold for a second. Like, they have a stare off. And then, like, Oscar goes to leave. And Nate's like, what is this place?
Literally. And now that to me was, like, one of the most drama TV show moments in this book so far. You know?
Yeah.
I was seeing, like, the dramatic camera angles, like, the handheld camera shake.
Yeah. Like, Oscar's going up the stairs, walking away, but responding to Nate. He's just like, this is the Kavatch building. It is my home. It is your home. It is a good home. What else do you need to know?
Oh, something he said earlier, actually, right, about the rats. He was like, this building is a dignified building. It will not have rats. At that, I was like, is this building alive?
This is in my notes. Hang on, let me find it. Yeah, so what he says, this is super odd. I'm glad you brought this up, because I totally would have missed it. he asked Nate about the rats, like when they were walking up to the building, and Nate was like, "Oh yeah, no, it was just the one. I guess it must have been a fluke." And then Oscar was like, "The Kavatch building would not allow rats within its walls. It is too dignified a building for pests."
Yeah, which is weird because there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of implications. It's like he's
also,
speaking about it.
There's fucking roaches, dude.
I
Like,
know.
are those not pests?
I know. Well, yeah, it implies that those aren't pests, which is interesting because it makes me think that now those might not be pests. They might have a purpose.
They might have a purpose, you think?
Yeah, and also he talks about the building as if the building is like alive.
He did.
As if it's its own thing. So I think that the building might be alive.
You think the building might be alive?
Yes.
This is a Monster House scenario.
Literally, I think.
You ever watch that movie, Monster House?
No, I haven't. I haven't watched that movie.
It's a creepy stop motion kids movie.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I'll include something for that in the linked up. But
okay,
cool. I'm not gonna get into it now.
Yeah.
No, yeah, this whole fucking thing is so much.
Yeah, so many things. I can't believe we nearly glossed over that. That was like one of the things for me in this chapter that I was like, oh, this has changed my theory.
It was the first thing I noticed. Like when I was listening to this chapter the first time for my notes, like I wrote that quote down before anything else.
Yeah, very, very bizarre. Very bizarre. So then they get home. He's like, this is my home. This is your home. It is a good home. And then they part ways.
Yeah, he slammed his door when
he did.
Boom. That's how the chapter ends. So what's up with Oscar then, do you think?
Crack cocaine. No, I don't know. He's just an old grouchy man.
Sure is.
Who I think he just really cares about his job. I think he might have been a snoop when he first moved in, found out what is going on with the building, realized that he couldn't tell anyone, and then they offered him the position as the building manager.
I like that theory. I like that.
I like that theory too. It's a good theory. Just pat myself on the back about that one. Next chapter.
Chapter 26. How Nate drank on the roof with Tim and Roger, and how he worked out his next move.
Beers on the roof are a thing. Beers on the roof are a thing in this book.
This is the third time it's happened.
It makes me want to sit on a roof, watch a sunset, and drink some beers.
Yeah. You know what I think we should start doing? I think that when we record, we should have beers ready to go. So whenever we reach these chapters, we'll just start drinking beer with them.
What I'll do as well is I'll send you a YouTube link to a sunset, and we can just...
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
So, on the roof,
So Nate goes to the roof. He sees Tim and Roger already up there, and he jokes about like him being replaced. And Tim's like, "Well, Roger brought beer. What did you bring?"
And then he offers to go get chips, which is a nice little, gesture.
And Roger's like, "No, save it for next time, bro." Yeah. And then they're chatting a little bit, and Nate shares with them everything that he's found out that we've discussed this episode, right?
Yeah.
And Roger's like surprised. He's like, "What do you mean, hottie Asian chicks and actress?"
Yeah.
This is a great bit. Tim's like, I was a bit skeptical at first. Like, I thought you were just kind of overreacting, but this is like I gotta admit, like, if somebody is like hiring a third party to conduct their business, that's someone trying to protect themselves. And then probably the best part of this chapter, Andrew shows up.
Oh,
and
I
Tim
love this.
Puts him in his fucking place.
Yeah. Andrew like starts trying to preach, and Tim is like, "Shut your mouth.
Stop."
Yeah, it was really good.
I loved how that whole scene was handled.
Yeah.
Because, like, like Tim was
Jedi
just
mind
being
tricks.
a nice guy. He
Yeah.
was just being a nice guy. Like, hey, you want a beer? And he's just like, I don't know. The book has a thing or two to say about alcohol and intoxication.
not the best from what's his name? Christian man.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew. Yeah. No, Tim puts him in his place and is like, listen, I did not come up here to be lectured to.
Yeah. And spoken down to.
Or spoken down to. I'm not here for this. And then like Andrew just keeps trying and Tim's like, no. And then finally fucking points a finger at him.
Yeah. To be fair, he had a level of commitment that only God could instill. He tried like 4 or 5 times, which is like so much after someone tells you to stop.
Like 3 times, I think, is my limit. If somebody like tells me 3 times, like
this,
no, it's like okay, all right. Okay.
I know. And so he storms off, and then just as Vika arrives. This is another time where I'm like, Nate and Vika flirting, because Nate like moves over and she like sits on the same seat as him.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's just flirty.
Well, he is the person that she would be closest to in this situation, and there's only 3 chairs, so
that's fair.
I guess I just didn't think about it.
That's fair. Maybe.
So they're like talking about the building again. Tim is straight up like, yeah, no, I'm in. I'm invested. Like, I gotta find out what's going on with this place. And Roger's like, I mean, better be careful, dude. It's not worth losing your place. Like, he tells Nate that. And Nate's like, that's been coming up. I feel like that's by design. Like, I feel like that's part of the reason why the rent is so cheap.
Yeah.
So, like, people don't think about it. People don't question it, don't look into it. Like, who wants to risk losing such a cheap apartment?
Yeah. Which makes sense.
This chapter just kind of ends with Nate being like, okay, I know what I'm going to do next.
Chapter 27. How Nate gathered his neighbors for a meeting of the minds.
This is where Nate had decided what they were going to do for the weekend, because people kept asking, what are we doing next weekend, and he was like, we can't do anything because Oscar's onto us. We can't do anything super conspicuous. So what he can't throw us out for is if we all just get together and have a chat and talk about what's going on and see who's in, and so he gets like the congregation of all of the people that they've interacted with regarding this so far, except for Andrew, and they all gather in the living room. In the living room, in the lobby, in like the shared space. They put on the Good Hulk movie, specified the Good Hulk movie.
So this is actually the most important question I've ever asked you in this entire book. Which Hulk movie do you think is the better Hulk movie? The Ang Lee one or the Edward Norton one?
Edward Norton. Just saying.
Did you see the old one?
Yeah, I've seen the old one. It is atrocious.
I love
Tim Roth is in the newer one.
He is.
Tim Roth is a really good actor. I like Tim Roth.
Yeah. Roger talks about Tim Roth and like, no, this is great. It's got Tim Roth in it.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, so they talk about just everything that they collectively know. Nate primarily takes the lead on this, sharing what he knows. But we learn some interesting new nuggets.
What interesting... Oh, we do learn interesting new nuggets. I totally forgot about these.
So you list off the nuggets you remember.
So, I remember Tim mentioned 2 things. He mentioned a low ambient hum that was messing with his microphones because he's a guitarist and he likes to record stuff. And he also...
This is the thing. This is the thing, though, that made me think, okay, this would be the thing. That this would be the deal breaker for us. Like, neither of us could live in a place that would fuck with our microphones.
Yeah, literally. But, I mean, if it's a subharmonic hum... If it's super low, so low that you can't really hear it, I mean, would it even pick up on a microphone?
Well, I mean, he
Probably
specifically
not.
said the only reason he picked up on it was because the subsonic hum was picking up on his equipment.
Yeah, but that I'm not sure how much sense that makes. Unless it's like picking up, I don't know, resonance and what's it called? Like harmonic frequencies above it.
Well,
you know?
Let me ask you this. A dog whistle, right? Like, people can't hear a dog whistle. Can recording equipment pick up a dog whistle?
It depends on the diaphragm. Like, so microphones pick up frequency ranges. Some frequencies, because it's like human hearing is from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So anything outside of that range, and it gets affected by aging and, you know, different things. But that's like the human hearing spectrum. So if you have sounds that happen outside of that, people won't be able to hear them, whether they're lower or whether they're higher. And so microphones and audio equipment are generally sculpted in that range, and they're created to be optimal in that range. But that's not to say that microphones and speakers and sound equipment doesn't pick up frequencies outside of that range. It has its own range. Sometimes its range, most of the time its range is bigger, but it depends on the frequency. So if it's like super low, I know that there are some like speakers and stuff that say that they can pump out like, I don't know, lower than 20 hertz or whatever.
I love that it turns out you're actually the perfect person to talk about this book with because a little shit like this.
Yeah. Me too.
What was the other thing that Tim?
So that
Tim
was
noticed?
a sidetrack. The other thing that Tim noticed was he takes out like one of those flat card compasses, and it's just spinning, which means that they're in like some electromagnetic, like, you know.
Yeah.
Which means, and it's so funny, I think Roger was like, later in this chapter, he's like, so we're getting our electricity from the air, which killed me.
I love Roger. I love that guy. He's so funny.
Yeah. He's like low-key flirting with Zila as well the whole chapter.
He totally is. I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, because at the end of the chapter, Nate's like, so who wants to help, like, figure out what's going on? And Roger only raises his hand after he sees Zila raise her hand. That was funny.
It was funny.
Yeah. The thing with the compass was interesting because it only does it inside the building. Like, you can literally stick it outside a window and then it'll go back to normal.
Which is weird. That's
Very
really weird. Because
very weird.
A building is like a cube, right? It's like a cube shape. But fields like that are not square. They're very round. So there must be either parts of the building that don't have that interference, or you know, it just strikes me as really odd. It cannot. I mean, it's fiction. You told me it was fiction. I didn't realize until. And so now I need to just let shit like this go.
Now I feel like a jerk.
No.
No, now we're going to just discount every fucking little thing with it's fiction.
Yeah, well, it is. It is. The science isn't accurate. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, anyways, we learn a few other things. We learned that the cornerstone that had those initials WNA and PTK. So I'm gonna admit a mistake I made in an earlier episode we did. I was like, PT Kavatch, like that's a real person. I was like, no, I misheard. Like that was she assumed that PTK was PT Kavatch. And like here we learned from both Mandy and Zila that it's a monogram. Like they're both monograms. So it's really WAN and PKT. So so you know, they realize, oh, okay, we actually have no idea who these people are.
Yeah, I thought I was very confused. I swear she didn't find a PT Kavatch.
No. Yeah. I misheard, and
you said it with such confidence.
I said it with such confidence because of what my notes said, and it's like, man, I should not trust what my notes say all the time. No, that was...
Dude, this whole podcast is running off your notes, please.
Okay, we should mostly trust what my notes say.
Okay, that's better. Jesus.
So we learn that little correction to do with the cornerstone. We also find out what's going on with the green Taurus.
Yeah, because Tim mentions that his ex-wife has stuck a PI on him because she cheated and she's trying to, like, getting a leg up in divorce court.
Yeah, he admits a lie by omission and is like, okay, look, I didn't, like, there was a detail I left out. His wife was cheating on him with someone at work, and so when the opportunity to sell the company came up, he was like, he jumped on that and then just fucking moved.
Yeah.
And according to him, this guy is a private investigator that's like trying to find any kind of dirt on him to like give her a leg up in divorce proceeding. So he's like, nobody give me any hugs, especially like no public displays of affection, please. Yeah. No public displays of affection.
To be fair, that would absolutely fuck him over in divorce court.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought it was funny when Zila was like, our love will remain a secret.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Also, Debbie points out something interesting. Like, she brings up the cockroaches, and she raises a very good question. Like, has anybody seen a normal roach in this building? And nobody could admit to have seeing one, which was very interesting.
It is very interesting.
So the chapter kind of ends with just Nate wanting to know who wanted to help him snoop, and like pretty much everyone but Mandy was in. She was too terrified of losing her place, which Nate understood.
I totally get it too. They've already like prefaced her credit being trash, so she wouldn't be able to get another place. So it makes sense.
And Nate admitted that Oscar implied that if he kept pushing, he would get evicted, and Veek was like, he straight up told me.
Yeah, spicy. Well, they can't evict them all, so
no.
Maybe they can. Maybe they can.
No, you're right. Maybe they can. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of weird shit is going on in this building, so maybe they can.
But yeah, that's where we're at. So what do you think's going on, man?
I think the building is alive. My theory about Oscar still lives on.
What was your theory? Remind me.
When he first moved in, he did snooping. He worked out what was going on, and they gave him a job as manager to try and stop people from finding out. You know. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I feel like it's a good theory. You know, it's like the hackers thing. Like
hackers.
If a hacker, do you get what I mean? Like if a hacker hacks into like a government thing, then they like hire them
then the government
to build the protection. Yeah. It's like that.
I get it.
That's my theory about Oscar. The green Taurus thing was such a red herring. I thought that was going to be something way bigger, but it was not.
Interesting though.
It was.
I guess we're gonna wrap up. We got nothing else to talk about today. So we will catch you all next time. Thank you, Vid West, for letting me use your space. Thank you, Jake, for recording with me.
Thank you.
Music's great.
Yeah, and thank everybody for their kind donations towards a Herman Miller mirror or... I can't remember what's the highest end Herman Miller chair that they make.
Bro, I don't know.
I used to know. Very expensive. I saw one in a dumpster the other day. I was very upset. Anywho, thanks for listening. Bye.